It's good to see all of you. Those of you who don't know me, I am a professor in the theater department. So I know a lot of you were here last week to hear people talk. How many of you were here last week? Yeah. Okay, so you know they were all very knowledgeable in theology and philosophy. That's not me. I'm in the theater, so this is more about the whole life thing. And quite frankly, I was kind of wondering if I should take it personally that Father Daly asked me to talk about adversity, but then I thought, well, you know, we all have our gifts, and clearly he thinks mine is adversity. I don't know if it's because he thinks I cause it or that I endure it, but nonetheless, I am here. And I want to start with a few quick thoughts. First, I find it fascinating that this woman is talking about the sweetness in adversity and the sweetness of adversity in marriage. Because, you know, typically as a theater person, who am I going to go find backup for whatever it is that I want to talk about? Well, in our department, we tend to go to Shakespeare. So, and lo and behold, I find that in the play, As You Like It, in Act 2, Scene 1, the deposed Duke says, "Sweet are the uses of adversity, which, like the toad, ugly and venomous, wears yet a precious jewel in his head. And this, our life, exempt from public haunt, finds tongues in trees, books in running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything." So what the Duke is describing is the worldview that he has been forced to take on by his villainous brother who deposed him. And this adversity, for which he has found sweet uses, which means that he profits by them, he compares his seeming suffering, for example, exposure to the elements, to an ugly toad, which, in this case, legendarily, had a precious jewel with healing qualities embedded in its temple. So through the jewel, he discovers in his condition its profit is freedom from public haunt or society, which is heavy when you're a political leader. The Duke concludes that nature speaks more eloquently and truly than tongues, books, and sermons, and stones turn out to be better company than courtiers. So that about wraps it up for Shakespeare with adversity in that view. But I think that sums it up as well. Is that, you know, one of the things about adversity, to turn it around, is to say, how can I review the world? And I mean review it, and make this a positive. So part of what I want to talk about, I'm going to give you three little things. First of all, I looked up the definition of adversity, which is a condition marked by misfortune, calamity, or distress. Calamity means great misfortune, or disaster, or grievous affliction. So now that we know what, you know, adversity means, so marriage can bring out the best and the worst in all of us. That's one of the things my husband says all the time, that one of the greatest things we ever did was have kids. One of the worst things we ever did was have kids. Okay, because they can bring out the absolute best in you, and they can also bring out the absolute worst in you on any given day and any given child. You know, in our house, you know, they take turns. Which one do I hate this week? You know, so it's just depending on how, you know, how little bratty they're being. But I want to get back to, okay, so marriage, all right? So when Aristotle says when you have two people, you have politics. So if you have a marriage, you've got politics. There's always something to be negotiated, even down to who gets in the shower first in the morning. Suddenly you have the Geneva Convention in your bedroom. Okay, and all kidding aside, the point to keep in mind is that you have to bear in mind, and this gets very hard in marriage, you have to bear in mind that when you are doing these negotiatings, that you're trying to solve a problem, whatever that problem is. You're trying to solve a problem. It's very easy to lose sight of that in a marriage. And for many, many reasons, and we won't get into that because that's another discussion. The other point I wanted to talk about was contract versus covenant. Okay? We are a very litigious society. We like contracts spelled out. The simplest way to look at a contract is, if you do this, I will do that. Okay, so it's kind of an even Steven thing. And a lot of what we do in marriage today is a contract. So if you don't hold up your end of the contract, I don't have to hold up my end, is essentially what happens in that. And that is not what we purport as marriage in our Catholic faith. We choose the covenant model, and covenant was established in the Old Testament between God and Abraham. And what God said is, you will be my people and I will love you forever. Unconditional love. He didn't say, I'm going to love you if you do everything I tell you to do. He said, I will love you forever. So to this day, the Jews are God's people. That's who they are. Okay, whatever, and they have done, if you read the Old Testament, there's been all kinds of wars, all kinds of stuff going on, but they are still his people, and he loves them unconditionally. And that is what marriage is, to love unconditionally. Now, this brings us down to Christian love is the same, and I mean, theologically we could really get into a discussion here, but anyway, Christian love is the same as married love in that it is a choice. Okay? You are choosing to love this person. That's what you're choosing to do. So marriage is the only sacrament that is not administered by a priest or a deacon. It is the couple who ministers to each other in a marriage and in a wedding. Okay? The couple commits to each other. That's the only sacrament. Okay? So, with this, in this choice, you have to get past this feeling of, wow, I really love this person, because you have these relationships and it's like, whoa, springtime hits and fireworks are going off and it's wonderful, and you think of all this stuff, and hey, for a few weeks, a few months, it's great, and then you start to notice this stuff, like, oh my God, he doesn't shut his mouth while he's chewing his food. Or like she is like, oh God, she takes forever, she's always late, she takes forever to get ready. And it's when you get to the point where you realize these things about this person that you've fallen in love with, that you say, you know what, I see all that, I'm not blind to it. Because they say love is blind, and love is until you get to a certain point, and then it's not blind. Okay, then it's time to open up the eyes and be like, whoa, okay? But even with that, you look at the other person and you say, I am choosing to love you unconditionally. So I'll take you with all of your maladies, whatever that is. And going into the relationship with eyes wide open, it is choosing to see the good in another human being and choosing to make that grow. And you have to recommit yourself to that every day in a marriage. It's marriage, my one cousin says all the time, marriage is not for the faint of heart. Okay, meaning that it's work. And they've said that in this film. Marriage is work. And it's a recommitment every day. Now, what So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, so when choosing a mate, it's a good rule of thumb, okay, to agree on the really big issues, all right? So the big issues are, in case you're confused about it, is your faith, whether or not you're going to have children, and if you are, how are you going to raise them, in what faith? You get those three big ones down, all right? Then the little things that happen, because everything else is little compared to these things, all right? Remain just that, little things. It doesn't, if you agree on faith and the children and, how you're gonna raise the children in faith, you can get through pretty much everything. You really can. Again, it takes work and it's not easy, but you can. So there are just some rules of thumb. As the film suggested, there are many ways that life can throw you some curveballs. Now, I tell my students all the time, you need to pray. You need to have a relationship with God. And in some classes, depending on where they are in their journey, I tell them, in the next 10 years of your life, you will probably see things and experience parts of life that you never anticipated. You're going to see either, and it's not that you see all of these, nobody's Job, but serious illness or physical maladies, the loss of a child, the loss of a job, friends not returning from conflicts in other countries, losing friends to substances. All these things are adversities, and they are things to overcome with God. These things at times become insurmountable. So, and hope becomes unattainable sometimes. And as a matter of fact, interestingly enough, today's DeSales Daily is hope is a love that expects and aspires. God is that supreme good which hope waits for. So having a relationship with God allows us to look at adversity and embrace it. So in my life, I have endured some adversity, and as a result, people ask me all the time, how do you remain so positive with all these things? And I tell them, I always reach a point in whatever suffering that I'm doing where I feel like I am no longer in control, because of course I try to control it like an idiot, but you try. So at that point, when I think I can't stand whatever this is anymore happening to me, I have to pause. And in that pause, I say to God, okay, what is it? Clearly you are trying to talk to me, okay? And I'm obviously not listening because this keeps going on. And it is then that I think of this story. So the first time that I had cancer, my husband, it was scary because our oldest was like a sophomore in college, and at the time our youngest was in second grade. So that's a little scary when you think, oh, okay, whoa, we could lose our mom here. So he, kind of went into overdrive and decided that we should go down to Alabama to go see Mother Angelica from EWTN. So, okay, honey, if that's what you want to do. So we go down to see Mother Angelica, and he said, I want her to pray over you. That's what I want her to pray over you. And I was like, well, okay, fine. So we go into there. Now, what you don't know is that when I was diagnosed with cancer the first time, I was already on the docket for open heart surgery. So we had to put the open heart surgery on the back burner and deal with the cancer because, of course, that was imminently more life-threatening. So I was kind of in a conundrum. We go down and you go to see Mother Angelica, and I don't know how much you know about her or if you even know who Mother Angelica is. Mother Angelica started this television station that's an international station called EWTN, Eternal Word Television Network, and my husband had done some work for them. That's why he wanted me to go down there and have her prayer meet. Fine. So she is a cloistered nun, though. So when we go to see her, she's behind the bars and everything, you know, like you're talking to her through bars. So she says to me, "So, dearie, what do you want me to pray for?" And I said, geez, Mother, I guess, you know, God's will. Why don't we pray for God's will? And she goes, oh, look, don't be praying for that God's will crap, all right? She's like, don't do that. If you're going to pray for something, you pray for the miracle. You go for the miracle. Okay. So I said, so what miracle do you want? And I said, well, let's go for the heart, since we're working on the cancer. Okay, so she was like, all right, we're going to pray that your heart heals. And then she said, here's what it is. You pray for the miracle, and if you get your miracle, you thank God. If you don't get your miracle, then you thank Him again, because He has invited you to join Him on the cross in offering up His and your suffering for the good of others. So I do that now when I get to a point where I think, oh my God, one more day of this, and I think, oh man, you know, this looks good. It looks good to just end it, you know. Then I stop and I say, well, you know, I have to thank God. I have to thank Him for what I'm suffering and ask Him to take it and use it for someone else's good. And therefore, no suffering is empty. It can always be used for a good. And here's what's really surprising about that, is that as soon as you do that, as soon as you say, thank you, God and Jesus, for giving me this suffering. Please use it for somebody who really needs it right now. As soon as you do that, this is my own personal opinion, I don't know how theologically correct it is, but I really think that Satan gets a little upset with that, and he starts to really back off the suffering, because invariably, when I have prayed that prayer, the suffering has become bearable. So, it's something you can do, and know that there's always a positive. No matter how bad you are, there is always a way to make it a positive. And I think that's what they're talking about in this film. So, am I there? I'm at 10 minutes, so I have to stop. And now you have to talk.